Hello everyone, my name is Claudius Cazan. In this video, we continue talking about triads. We're going to take our trusty root position, first inversion and second inversion triads, and we're going to score them into 4 parts: soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. I'm also going to perform for you the number 30 from Robert Starr's Rhythmic Training book and Solfege number 28. Please stay tuned. Welcome back. Let's continue talking about triads by scoring triads into 4 parts. Okay? And we're going to look at a few rules that we need to obey. But first, let's look at the voice ranges. Let's look at the soprano first. And now we're talking about the actual sopranos, alto, tenors, and basses in the choir. Not the professional singers that have a much wider range, but in the traditional choir. Okay? So as you see on the tablet, I have the soprano range here, which spans from middle C, okay, to the A, right above the treble clef. Okay? Occasionally, you can give them notes outside of this range, but remember you're dealing with non-trained voices, so you don't want to spend too much time in these extreme ranges, in the extreme upper or lower part of the range. All right, and let me tell you, sopranos really don't like to sing in the very low range. Okay, C, D's, E's, B's. They like to stay in the upper part. So this is pretty much the soprano range. All right, good. Let's move over to the alto. The alto is lower by about 1/4 or 1/5 than the soprano. Okay, so it's from G below middle C, okay, to the C above middle C, an octave higher than middle C. All right. Occasionally, again, you have one note on either side that you could assign to them, but only very temporarily. Okay, so that's the alto. The tenor, of course, it's notated on the bass clef, okay? And the tenors pretty much go 1 octave below middle C, okay, to the G above middle C, okay? Occasionally, again, you have 2 notes on either side to assign them in case you have good tenors. If you have good tenors, they can sing the A. If not, G is pretty much as you want to give to the tenors. If you're not familiar with the grand staff, please take a look at one of my much earlier videos where I talk about the grand staff and how we assign the notes on the grand staff. Great. Let's look at the bass. The bass can sing from the G, the low G, occasionally F. If you have really good basses, they could go down as far as E or even D, to middle C, okay? And occasionally a D. I am a bass, and let me tell you, since my voice is not trained, I struggle most of the time with Ds and, E's, very, very difficult. Occasionally I could hit them, but mostly I like it on the lower range. Lower range for the bass, it's better. All right, good. Now that we know what notes we can assign to these voices, let's take our trusty C-E-G triad, okay? A major triad in root position. Sounds like this. And let's score it in 4 parts. Scoring means assigning notes to these 4 parts, okay? So, rule number 1, we want to make sure that we respect the voice ranges, okay? Nothing outside of these ranges. Okay, on the tablet here, I have 4 possible resolutions of this, and you notice that I have circled in red the root of the triad. If you look at my position up on top, the root position C-E-G, the notes are arranged in thirds, and the root is in the bottom, right? It's the lowest sounding note, or the bass note, as we called it last time, okay? So I am taking that note and I am doubling it, Okay? Since we only have 3 notes and we have 4 voices, one of the notes needs to get doubled, right? Most of the time, you want to double the root. That's the most important note in the triad, no matter where it is, on top, in the middle, right? If you're dealing with root position, first inversion, second inversion triads, the root is still the most important, no matter where it is in the triad. All right, and you can see here that it's doubled. In the first example, it's doubled between the tenor and the bass. Okay, the other 2 notes are given to the alto and the soprano, and it sounds like this. Right? It's also a closed position. Why is it closed? Because I cannot fit any other chord notes. The chord notes are C, E, and G. I cannot fit any of those chord notes between the upper 3 voices. You can see that in the bracket, right? There's no place for me to put other notes that belong to this chord between those 3 voices. So we call this a closed position. But on the second example, you can see that even though I am doubling the root between the bass and the soprano this time, this position is open, meaning that between the soprano and the alto, I could fit another G, right? Because I have an E and a C assigned to those 2 voices. So in the middle there on the G, I could still fit another chord tone, okay? And also I could fit another C between the alto and the tenor, right? The tenor has the G, the alto has the E, so in there, I could possibly fit another C. If you have these gaps where you can fill in with chord tones or notes belonging to the chord, we call those an open position. And again, it's only between the upper 3 voices, okay? The second example sounds like this. This one sounds very nice. Why? Because the voices are evenly distributed, okay? There's not too many notes grouped together, not too many gaps between the notes. They're pretty nicely distributed across the entire range of the choir, okay? That's why it sounds so nice and full. Let's look at the third example. Okay, the root is still doubled now between the bass and the alto this time, right? Sounds like this. This one sounds very nice too. I like the way it sounds. And the fourth example, it's a closed position. Okay, this one sounds a little more open to me because there's a big gap between the bass and the tenor, and the notes are kind of grouped towards the top. All 3 of them are right here, okay? With a bigger gap between the tenor and the bass. All right, very good. Let's take a look at a couple more possibilities in here on the second page. You can see again in here on the first example, I am doubling the root again, but the 2 voices, the bass and the tenor, are at a unison, right? Okay, and it's a closed position, right? The voices are kind of grouped together, okay? The second example is open, okay? This one sounds open and also sounds, all the voices are right up there on the upper range of each voice. Okay, actually the bass, it's at the very top of their voice range, right, on the middle C. Okay, and notice one thing in here, the 5th is doubled. You can double the 5th as well if you cannot double the root. Okay, so this is a possible resolution or assignment of the triad notes to this particular position here of the, okay. It's okay. Most of the time you want to double the root, but if you have to double the 5th, that's okay too. Third example also sounds nice, it's okay. And the fourth example here, it's a closed position, okay, because all the notes are grouped together. C, E, G, and C again. The root is doubled as well. All right, very good. Let's move on and score a first inversion triad into 4 parts. The first inversion triad has the 3rd in the bass, okay, the lowest sounding note. Okay, and in our case here, that's the E. You notice how I assign the E to the bass voice, all right, because it's the lowest sounding note. Okay, and that's the most important thing when we score things. What is in your bass? What's in your lowest sounding voice or instrument? Okay, but here we have the E in the bass. Okay, we're still doubling the root. But notice we are not doubling the third in any of these examples here. Okay, the second example sounds like this. Still, there's only 1/3. The third example, okay, we're doubling the root in there. And in the fourth example, we're doubling the fifth. And it sounds like this. This one sounds a little odd because there's a big space between the tenor and the alto. It's still allowed. It's no more than an octave. And by the way, one of the rules in here, we're going to take a look at the rules shortly, is not to have more than an octave between the upper three voices. Okay? That's why this one sounds a little awkward. Now, why don't we double the thirds? This is very important. Thirds are considered hot notes, H-O-T, hot, meaning that they need to be resolved. Okay? When I say hot, that means that those are notes that you have to take care of very carefully. Okay? If we were to double the third, we would have to resolve both of those thirds. Okay? And not only that, it sounds a little overpowering to have two, for example. Okay? If I double the third in there, it sounds a little overpowering. Okay? And if we have to double both of them, it's very likely you're going to end up with parallel octaves. Okay? Or parallel unisons, because if you assign them to the same note to two voices, both of them have to move together. That means a parallel unison. Or if they're at an octave apart, you'll have to resolve both of them, and you end up with parallel octaves. So even from the very beginning, they decided not to double the third in any of these chords. Now, occasionally, rarely, but very rarely, if there's absolutely no other solution, it only makes sense to double the third, it's probably okay, but you got to make sure that you do not end up with parallel octaves, okay, when you do this. Very well. So this is how we score a first inversion triad, okay? We only assign the third of the chord to one voice only, okay? And we double the root most of the time. If not, it's okay to double the fifth, but never the third. Let's score the second inversion triad now into 4 parts. Okay, and again, it's fine to double the fifth, as I do here in this example. G. Okay, notice that the third, which is up in the soprano now, there's only one instance of that. Okay, in the second example, we have this. Okay, again, we're doubling the fifth in there, the G, between the bass and the alto. And in the third example, we have this. This one sounds fuller and nicer. Why? Because we're doubling the root here, and we only have one instance of the fifth and the third. And on the fourth example, again, we're doubling the fifth, okay, when the bass and the tenor are at a unison, which is fine. That's great. Okay. Here are the general voicing rules. Okay. Now, these are just the rules for voicing, for assigning notes to the voices. Once we start moving between chords later on, we're going to add a lot more rules. But these 4 are just here to get you started. Number 1, respect the voice ranges. Very important. You don't want to assign voices outside of those ranges that we talked about in the very beginning. Do not cross voices, meaning I don't want my tenors to sound higher than my altos, okay, or my altos to go above the sopranos, okay? It's going to be very confusing, and these are the rules basically of the Baroque period, Okay. Later composers and later time periods have taken other liberties with not crossing voices, but in the Baroque period, it was a good practice to keep the voices very well defined, okay? Making sure that each voice, you know, has its own range and they do not cross each other, okay? Now, if you occasionally find some crossing of voices, that's perfectly fine. But in our examples here, since we're studying music, let's not do that. Let's not cross voices. No doubling of the third, except in very, very rare cases. Okay, we'll try to stay away from doubling the third as much as we can, and no more than one octave between the upper three voices. Okay, that is to prevent things like this from happening. We have two voices grouped towards the bottom and two voices grouped on the top. Okay, well, okay, with a huge gap in between, more than an octave. Okay, that doesn't sound too good. So in order to prevent that, they limit the amount of space you can have between the upper three voices. Interesting enough, you can have more than an octave between the tenor and the bass. Okay, in other words, you can have something like this. Okay, okay, or this. Okay, still all the voices are within their ranges, but you have more space between the tenor and the bass, and that's considered fine. Okay, my advice is make sure that you limit it. Okay, yes, you can have more than an octave, but don't have too much, because then it starts to sound a little weird. All right, very good. Let's do some exercises with this. Okay, now you know the theoretic part. Let's see if we can do some practice with this. I put a triad in here in first inversion, E flat, G, and C. Okay, and I'm asking you to score this in soprano, alto, tenor, bass, 4 voices. All right, the upper 2 voices, the soprano, the alto, always go on the top treble clef, and the tenor and the bass always go on the bass clef. Okay, that's to keep them really organized. Okay, and use at least 4 positions, open and closed. Okay, and here's my resolution to this, and let me talk a little bit about this. First of all, right off the bat, E flat is the third of the chord, right? We're in a first inversion triad here. If you look at it, there's only one instance of that E flat in any of my examples in here. So we're not doubling the third, which is good. All right. Let's see. First example. Okay, sounds pretty good. We're doubling the root between the tenor and the soprano. All right, and there's only one instance of the third in the bass, which is good. Second example. Okay, sounds a little weird. Why? Because of the wide space between the soprano and the alto, but it's still allowed. It's still within an octave. Octave is the maximum you can have, but that's okay. And the third example is this. Okay, and the fourth one is this. Notice that in this case, the tenor and the alto are at a unison together, which is perfectly fine. Unisons between voices are allowed, and that's perfectly good. All right, let's take another triad now. B flat, D flat, F flat. Our trusty diminished triad in root position. Okay, so these are my resolutions for this that you can study and look at. Okay, and first, okay, I'm doubling the root in the first example. B flat is a root, and then D flat and F flat are assigned to the tenor. I mean the alto and the soprano. Okay, second example. I'm doubling the fifth in the second one. The F flat is the fifth, right? And in the third example, this one's a little more difficult to play because there's more than an octave between the bass and the tenors, right? There's that interval of a tenth, and then we have B flat and F flat on top. Okay, so you need a a wide hand in here to be able to play this, but luckily that's as much as I can do on the piano, about a tenth. Not comfortably though, but for example, giving examples is fine. And the fourth one, this is interesting. You're going to say, well, where's your fifth in here? Well, there is no fifth. Okay, there's three voices there at a unison. The bass, the alto, and the soprano are all singing a B flat. Okay? That is allowed from time to time. Don't do it too often, right? Because you're missing one of the elements, which is the fifth. But if you have to miss any of the elements, the fifth is the best to miss. You don't want to miss the root, obviously, because that's such an important note in the triad. You can't even have a triad without a root, right? It's like you can't have a tree without a root. But third is also important because the root and the third, pretty much set the tone of the triad, the quality of the triad. So those are two very important elements. If you were to miss anything, you can miss the fifth. Okay. Okay. So in this case, you can see how it sounds a little open because there's only two notes involved in here instead of three. One more example. Okay. C sharp F A. This is our augmented triad in second inversion, right? 6/4. I didn't put the figures down, but that's what it is. Let's see how we score this in 4 parts. Okay, the first one, C sharp and F on the bottom, and then F and A. This one sounds kind of weird, not only because it's a dissonant triad, but also because there's a big space between the tenor and the alto. It's at the maximum again, 1 octave. So it sounds a little weird, but it's still okay. And the second example. Okay, the notes are spaced out in here, so it sounds a little more even across, but still the alto and the soprano are at their maximum there with the octave. Okay, and I am doubling the root in here, which is F, right? All right, third example, C sharp, F, A, and C sharp. Okay. The C sharp is doubled, which is our fifth, okay, which is still okay. And in the last example, C sharp, F sharp, F, A, C sharp. Okay. Again, the three voices, upper voices, are grouped together on top with a big gap between them and the bass, which is still okay. Remember, we don't care too much about the space between the tenor and the bass. We're still fine. So you can study these positions and notice that I am obeying all those rules. Okay, we stay within the range of the voices. Nothing goes outside of that. Everything gets if it's there. We're not doubling the third, right? We are not having more than 1 octave between the upper 3 voices, and these are very important rules. Very good. This is all I wanted to talk to you today in the theory part. Next time we're going to look at 7th chords. We start studying 7th chords. We're going to take the triad and we add yet another third on top of it to create a 7th chord. So the 7th chord is a 4-part, 4-note chord, I should say. All right. Very good. Let's move over to the starter. For today, I'm going to perform for you the number 30. Number 30 still deals with triplets. Remember, we're studying triplets here. And this one's written in 9/8, okay? Meaning that you conduct this on the formula of 3. Down, to the right, and up. And use 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay? So that's why it's in 9/8. Also, you had to prepare number 29. 29, it's written in 3/4, but because it has the 4, okay, as your beat, the quarter note as your beat, in order to subdivide that, you need to write the triplet with the bracket, or if you use the beam notation, put the 3 on top of the beams. But you don't have to do that in number 30, because in number 30, the bar subdivides nicely into 9 beats. The beat is the 8th note right now, and we can group those nicely into groups of 3, 3, 3, and 3. All right, so there's no need for the bracket or the 3 on top of the beams. All right, I'm going to put the metronome this time at 80, because these go a little bit quick. I want to make sure that I can, faithfully perform what's in here. Okay, so metronome goes at 80, and let's see. Ta 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 ta. All right, so this is a little more difficult. There's plenty of opportunities in here where you have to really look ahead and watch what your next pattern is going to be. Okay, so that was the number 30. For next time, please take a look at number 31 and 32. They still deal with triplets, but this time conducting on the formula of 4. So number 31 is in 4/4, and number 32 is in 12/8. Okay, they both conduct on the same formula of 4/4. Okay, great. Let's go on to solfege number 28. Okay, solfege number 28, for those of you who requested it. Number 1, it's written F sharp minor. Okay, 3 sharps mean either A major or F sharp minor. How do I know it's an F sharp minor? Because I'm looking at the first note and the last note, and I see an F sharp. Very good indication that it's in the in the minor mode rather than the major. And I see E sharps in there. Okay, E sharps are the leading tone to F sharp. Therefore, this one is very likely to be written in F sharp minor, and it is. Again, the metronome stays at 80 this time. Okay, these triplets go a little bit quick, but I don't have to use triplets here because I'm writing it in 9/8. All right. Also notice that if you want to have 2 equal notes in the beat, okay, the beat here is we're basically subdivided. We're putting together 3 beats to create one larger beat. 1 for 9/8. But if you need to subdivide into 2 equal parts this time, okay, you have to use a duplet. Look in the second measure there. We have a duplet. Okay. Normally everything subdivides into 3 here, but if you want to subdivide it into 2 equal parts, you have to put the duplet in there. Okay, so we talked about going back and forth between triplets and duplets last time, and you need a little bit of a practice with that. Okay, let's sound my beginning pitch. Fa. Okay, it's fa sharp, but we just say fa. Okay, we don't say the sharp. And let's see how this sounds. Metronome at 80 again. Fa, do, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, do, mi, re, do, si, do, fa, mi, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, do, fa, sol, la, do, la, sol, fa, mi, do,
fa, sol, fa, do, mi, re, do, si, la, sol, la, re, do, re, mi, fa. Sol, la, si, sol, fa, mi, do, mi, re, do, fa, la, fa, sol, la, si, do, la, sol, la, re, do, si, la, sol, fa, mi, re, do, fa, mi, la, fa, si, do, re, do, fa, la, sol, fa, re, do, fa, mi, la, sol, fa.
All right, this one goes by quite quickly, so requires a lot of practice slowly first, okay? And once you get used to all the pitches and all the rhythms in there, then you have to gradually bring the tempo up to 80. Yeah, you can do it faster too, but if you can do it at 80, you're pretty good with this. Great. 2 more solfeges for next time, number 29 and 30. Please request them from me at the classicalmusictheoryguy@gmail.com. Okay, until next time, I want you guys to stay safe and healthy and be good.